Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Parivajikacharya Stota Shata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jayam Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Parivajikacharya Stota Shata Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sekaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopiko Shamakun Radhakun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Navadweep Dham Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Ganga Maya Ki Jai Yamuna Maya Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai All glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Guru, Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Buddhaya Shimate. Bhakti Vikasa Swami Nitanamani. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 7, Knowledge of the Absolute, text number 7. Etat Yonini
Takes what, 8?
7. 7, yeah. Etat.
I think you're doing it wrong. I don't know if you're
Oh, wait.
Huh? You're doing verse 6 or 7?
Oh, I see. I'm looking at it wrong in the book. Okay. Yeah. Mataha parataram na anyat kinchit asti dhananjaya mai sarvam idam protam shutre maniganaha eva mata parataram nanyat matat parataram nanyat kinchidasti dhananjaya kinchidasti dhananjaya mai sarvamidam protam mai sarvamidam protam Sutre mani ganaiva Sutre mani ganaiva Matat parataram nanyat Kinchidasti dhananjaya Mai sarvamidam protam Sutre mani ganaiva Matat parataram nanyat Kinchirasti Dhananjaya. Mai sarvamidam protam. Shutre mani ganaiva.
Matah parataram nanya kinchidasti dhananjaya Mai sarvam idam proktam Sutre mani ganaiva Matah parataram nanya
Sarvamidam protam. Shutre mani ganaiva. Madhya padaram yad. Kinchirasti dhananjaya. Mai sarvamidam protam. Matajis. Kinchirasti dhananjaya. Mai sarvamidam protam. Shutre mani ganaiva. Mai sarvamidam protam. Shutre mani ganaiva. Mataha, beyond me. Para taram, superior. Na, not. Anyat kinchit, anything else. Asti, there is. Dhananjaya, O conqueror of wealth. Mayi, in me. Sardavam, all that be. Idam, which we see. Protam, is strung. Shutre, on a thread. Mani ganaha, pearls. Eva, like. Translation and purport given by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation: O conqueror of wealth, there is no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me as pearls are strung on a thread. Purport: There is a common controversy over whether the supreme absolute truth is personal or impersonal. As far as Bhagavad Gita is concerned, the absolute truth is the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, and this is confirmed in every step. In this verse in particular, it is stressed that the absolute truth is a person, and that the personality of Godhead is the supreme absolute truth, is also the affirmation of the Brahma Samhita, Ishvara Param Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha. That is, the supreme absolute truth, personality of Godhead, is Lord Krishna, who is the primeval Lord, the reservoir of all pleasure, Govinda, and the eternal form of complete bliss and knowledge. These authorities leave no doubt that the absolute truth is the supreme person, the cause of all causes. The impersonalist, however, argues on the strength of the Vedic version given in the Svetasvatara Upanishad. Tato yad uttarataram tad arupam anamayam. Yare tad vidur amritas te bhavanti ate tare dugam eva biyanti. In the material world, Brahma, the primeval living entity within the universe, is understood to be the supreme amongst the demigods, human beings, and lower animals. But beyond Brahma, there is the transcendence who has no material form and is free from all material contaminations. Anyone who can know him also becomes transcendental, but those who do not know him suffer the miseries of the material world. The impersonalist puts more stress on the word arupam, but this arupam is not impersonal. It indicates the transcendental form of eternity, bliss, and knowledge as described in the Brahma Samhita, quoted above. Other verses in the Svetasvatara Upanishad 3.8.9 substantiate this as follows: Vedaham etam purusham mahantam aditya varnam tamasah parashtat tameva vidvan ati murtyam iti nanyaha nanyaha panta vidyate yanaya. Yasmat param naparam asti kanchid. Yasman naniyo no jyo sti kanchit. Vriksha iva stadbo divi tishtai ikas. Tenedam purnam purushena sardavam. I know that Supreme Personality of Godhead who is transcendental to all material conceptions of darkness. Only he who knows him can transcend the bonds of birth and death. There is no way for liberation other than this knowledge of that Supreme Person. There is no truth superior to that Supreme Person, because he is the supermost. He is smaller than the smallest, and he is greater than the greatest. He is situated as a silent tree, and he illumines the transcendental sky. And as a tree spreads its roots, he spreads his extensive energies. From these verses, one concludes that the Supreme Absolute Truth is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is all-pervading by his multi-energies, both material and spiritual. Om Agyana Timirandhasya Yananjana Shalakaya Chakshuran Melitami Yena Tasme Shigurave Namaha Shri Shaitanya Mano Bhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutali Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Svabadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utav Padakamalam Shri Guru and Vaishnavams Cha Shri Rupam Sagarjatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Prijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitams Cha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bando Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostite Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavan Ishwari Vrishabhana Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanshakapa Trubhyas Cha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sati Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Padaya Shrimati Bhakti Vikasa Swami Nitinamane Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Padaya Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinamane. So this particular chapter is talking, is stressing the point of knowledge of the Absolute. Krishna is really hammering down that he's the Supreme Lord to Arjuna, who's the perfect hearer for this message. It reflects upon us that we should be also willing to hear this message, considering in Arjuna's situation, he's in the middle of a battlefield with so much going on at the time. Facing so many difficulties of the mind and the body. And even amongst such distress, Arjuna was willingly submitting to Krishna to hear this transcendental message, free him from all doubt so that he could continue in his Krishna consciousness. And for us, we don't face so many difficulties. But yeah, we still have a hard time sometimes making time to hear the message, to chant our rounds and these kind of things. So it's very inspiring to see what pure devotees are able to do by full surrender. So this is kind of what it's come to at this point in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna is encouraging Arjuna to pursue bhakti over these different paths of yoga, of cultivation of knowledge, and these various processes that are ultimately very difficult makes the living entity's progress very difficult. Especially in this age, with the onset of Kali Yuga. The living entity is always disturbed, very forgetful, and various plagues of the body, the mind, and nature always encumber the spirit soul. So Krishna is telling him to transcend beyond these different things, come to a higher platform, and surrender unto him. In this purport, Srila Prabhupada is establishing that the purport is that Krishna is a person. And before coming to Krishna consciousness, I had some idea of God in my life, and I felt, guided by him in some regards, but I never could have imagined that there's a process in which God's names are given to you, his activities are given to you, and by which you can study and you can chant his holy names and these kind of things. It's a very liberating process. Krishna's our best friend. He's been in our hearts since the beginning of time. He's sustaining the living entities in this material world, and he's directing us. So ultimately, as a best friend, he's hoping that we choose to turn to him. The analogy is given two birds on a tree branch. That we are the bird who is enjoying the bitter fruits of the material world at the time, and Krishna is patiently waiting behind us so that we can fly away to the spiritual world where the tree is the spiritual world's tree is the fruits are all very delicious and nectarian. So that's our situation. We're all aware of that. And it's always good to hear it again and again. We've seen that, even though some people personally were in front of Bhagavad Gita in the battlefield, not everyone was willing to accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so it's up to us as devotees. We have, by the grace of Srila Prabhupada, that we have this understanding of Bhagavad Gita, and it's readily available for anyone to take. That these purports, they time and time again, show that the living entity is subordinate to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that he's a person. So we're very fortunate to have this knowledge, and it's not, especially for someone from America, it's a little bit easier, or in the Western world, it's a little bit easier to accept this if you're at that stage when you're willing to accept these kind of things. But it seems in the Eastern world there's a lot of hang-ups. They have demigod tendencies, worshiping the demigods, and impersonal tendencies where they even go as far to say as they are God. Krishna and them are the same, and that at some point they'll achieve the same status as Krishna. So thankfully we're fortunate to be in the association of great devotees who are giving us the real purports of this transcendental message. Because this human form of life is very important. We understand we're cycling through 8.4 million species of life. We have taken so many births that it's really hard to count. Some say you can say it's beginningless in that sense. That we can't really trace the source. And so this human life, we've probably had it so many times, and we've misused it so many times. And here we are again in the midst of this great message, and still the doubts are there, and there may be some hang-ups. We may have some material desires still within our heart, and our mind may be giving us so many troubles, but Srila Prabhupada encourages us that just if you have some faith, take this life and dedicate it to Krishna. Because ultimately, I think most of us will accept reincarnation as a fact. And if this life doesn't pan out, then we're on to the next life. So what's the loss? But ultimately one who's been engaged in Krishna consciousness for some time can begin to really accept the Vedic wisdom. We have the downside of being in the Western world, and it's coming into the Eastern world as well, is that the scientists really make a good show of convincing us that we should look to the empirical side of life and disregard spiritual life. So ultimately this is going to be a big hang-up for some people, but actually the Vedic teachings, Srimad Bhagavatam, especially the 5th canto, even though I don't remember much of it at all, I do know that it was very scientific actually, and I did some of my own Googling after that, and I came to find out a lot of the facts presented in the Bhagavatam lined up with what scientists are just now finding out, accurate to very, very accurate numbers. Especially something that shocked me was the 8.4 million species of life that the Vedas teach about. If you Google it, actually scientists are also estimating, I think like they say 8.1 million species of life or something. So it's actually incredible how close it is. Not so incredible knowing that this knowledge is perfect, coming from the absolute truth. But for someone of my caliber who's got material hang-ups, then it's very, very enlightening. But yeah, like I was saying, these scientists, they're misleading society, and Prabhupada would often question why there's so many universities, but there's really no departments for actually studying the substance of the soul, the science of reincarnation, but you can actually see that across the world, even when they say we're prehistoric cavemen and all this, so there should have been no communications. All across the world, there's evidence of belief in supernatural forces, ghosts, these kind of things. Actually, most people are willing to accept that, and so even though there may be atheists who don't believe in God, yet they do believe in ghosts. So, I mean, clearly there's some difference between the body and after death. There's some sort of, they can fathom there's some sort of spirit after death, but they're in ignorance based on their activities of life, and ultimately they haven't got the mercy of a devotee yet. But Lord Chaitanya is saving conditioned souls left and right. So there will come a day when even the atheists become the minority, and ultimately Krishna consciousness will be the majority. Looking forward to that. So we pray every day. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashtadadeshatarine. So we're praying to Srila Prabhupada that, our respectful obeisance unto you. You're the servant of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. You are kindly preaching the message of Lord Chaitanya and delivering the Western countries, which are filled with impersonalism and voidism. And we can see that it may not be so directly visible to someone, but someone who's trained in Krishna consciousness can see that even hiding behind some people's religious sentiments is covered in personalism or voidism, and even grossly manifested that many people are turning towards Buddhism because they can accept that the material world is suffering, but they can't picture a spiritual world which is enjoyable and a supreme lovable person in Krishna. So they turn to voidism to get rid of their identity, which is ultimately miserable, because never has there been any point in my life, at least, that I've ever stopped moving. And if I ever do, it'd be a very miserable situation for me. I always like to be active. And so I can understand this philosophy that, ultimately we're living entities, purpose is activity towards Krishna. And it's about coming to that realization once again. And, the purport stressing Krishna is a person. When Srila Prabhupada was deciding to name the international organization, he specifically chose ISKCON because the K stood for Krishna. Actually, someone suggested maybe he could put God consciousness. But once again, Srila Prabhupada was definitely trying to establish Krishna as the supreme person, and that we aren't presenting some vague spiritual practice, God consciousness. Other people can do that, but that's not what our purpose is. We're here to directly give people the teachings that Krishna is the supreme person, Bhakti is the supreme process, and that ultimately why we're suffering in our day-to-day lives is because we're missing that. We're eating and sleeping every day, and we could be doing that for Krishna. And with so many different activities. We're making money, raising family, but the world is actually full of unsatisfied people. We may take care of a family member for some time, and later 10 years down the road, they may hate our guts. They may never come around again. Death ultimately takes everything away from us, no matter what wealth we've accumulated, our friends we've accumulated. I've lost some best friends in my life as well. So it's really disappointing that you put so much energy into this material situation, and usually it ends up lack of taste, full taste, or chewing the chewed. Just like high school, you'd stick gum under the desk, and someone who's crazy might pull it out and eat it. But that's us. We're the small majority. Someone was saying that as we fall from the spiritual world, we initially take the post of Brahma, and most everyone goes back again. 90% or something. Here we are, maybe even like slimmer than that. We're like the 5% that continue to fall down, and it's completely based on our deeds. So, So there's this, people have different philosophies about God. Some say that he created the universe and then he left it and it's running on its own. Some say there is no God. Some say God has died. I've heard that. I don't quite understand that. Or are we God? So there's different. Everyone's got something different to say, but the scientists are baffled in trying to empirically define God, but they're, amidst their theories, actually, if you look into it with Krishna conscious understanding, there's definitely a creator, someone who orchestrated it. Albert Einstein even accepted that he's one of the most intelligent people of the last century, and even he admitted that his science could only get him so far. There must be a force behind it. And God's so expert that all of his creations are actually creating more living entities on their own. And whereas the materialists may be so proud that they can create an automobile or this or that, but never can there not be any input on the side of the materialist. Always there must be some input. Whereas Krishna can create his situation and then he leaves it up and it continues on in that way. So even, as servants of God, we should understand that we're pretty minuscule in quantity, but we do have similar qualities as in spiritual nature. That's our original position. Every living entity from Brahma down to the ant, so the topmost and you can say the lowest living entities in the world, they're all getting any sort of power they have from Krishna's direction, and just like a pot holds vegetables, but remains separate. Krishna holds the material world together by his potencies, but he remains separate. And the universe rests on Krishna's energy. The example is given like that of the sun and sunshine, in which The sun is the person, the personality, which can be likened to Krishna, and the energy coming from the sun is the sunshine, which is holding the world together by Krishna's direction. This is one verse in the Bhagavatam, 11th canto, chapter 22, text 43. Just as a spider's web is extended from the spider and then retracted, similarly the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who resides within the heart of every living being, manifests the creation from himself and then withdraws it into himself. With his external potency, he illuminates the entire cosmic manifestation, and by his internal potency, he illuminates the consciousness of all living entities who are situated within the creation. And also, in Bhagavad Gita 15:13, he says, I enter into each planet, and by my energy they stay in orbit. I become the moon, and thereby supply the juice of life to all vegetables. So I like that. That verse in particular is relevant to what me and Avadut Prabhu are doing in the backyard. He was saying, because this verse says the moon supplies the juice of life to all vegetables, and actually, I'm not too familiar with the moon cycles, but he was saying like we should plan now because the moon is in its bright phase, and so it's giving juice and life to the plants. So it's very interesting. Even you can learn a lot, even materially speaking, from the Bhagavad Gita and by Krishna's teachings. So it says Krishna is holding each planet in orbit. We understand that Sankarshan is at the bottom of the material world, and he's holding up the planets with each of his hoods. He's a multi-headed serpent that is holding all the planets in orbit. So it's very interesting how Krishna conducts his activities for his own doing. And Srimad Bhagavatam is 1840, Lord Sri Krishna is the primeval Lord, the original form of Godhead, and his transcendental form are at the time of annihilation, they will wind back up in in a separate creation, but Krishna is always existing in his supreme abode, and he's not subject to this annihilation and creation. And he's making that clear to Lord Brahma, who, in the picture on the wall over there, had to actually undergo many austerities to actually be able to get the potency to create. And he got that through Krishna by the word tapaha, that Krishna called out to him, perform austerities and please me in this way, Yagya, which is another name for Vishnu. We're supposed to perform yagya to yagya. And in this particular age, we don't have to meditate like Lord Brahma, but we're given the easy path, yet difficult for some, easy path to through Sankirtan Yoga, which is all blissful. It's a very enlivening process. There's nothing like it in the whole world. So every time we come by distributing books or doing Harinam or Prasad distribution, it always leaves a very deep impact on the conditioned souls. And, it's very positive that the Krishna Life is also pushing this on, because America is right now very, very favorable, actually. No matter where we go, Mahotsa Prabhu has taught all the devotees that in any situation we're able to distribute books. And so the mercy is spreading around. And so we're trying to teach people these austerities, these not so difficult austerities that people can perform to attain perfection. Chanting of Hare Krishna is our daily sadhana, and reading of Srila Prabhupada's books. I don't know if you can call it an austerity, but it's actually very enlivening. But and so I want to read these 3 verses. I know that Supreme Personality of Godhead who is transcendental to all material conceptions of darkness. Only he who knows him can transcend the bonds of birth and death. There is no way for liberation other than this knowledge of that Supreme Person. There is no truth superior to that Supreme Person because he is the supermost. He is smaller than the smallest, and he is greater than the greatest. He is situated as a silent tree, and he illumines the transcendental sky. As a tree spreads its roots, he spreads his extensive energies. So, the impersonalists will take this meaning that, and this verse before it says, beyond Brahma there is the transcendence, who has no material form and is free from all material contaminations. And they'll say, oh, but he has no. Oh wait, actually it's. And they'll take this verse and they'll say, arupam, that he has no form. But we understand that doesn't mean he's formless completely. He's just the impersonal Brahman, but that he has no material form, no material qualities. He's nirguna, which means free of material qualities. And it's also said somewhere he has no arms, no legs, and similarly that also means he just doesn't have material arms and legs like we do. He has a completely spiritual form and his spiritual personal form. So the learned transcendentalists who know this absolute truth we'll call it different phases of realization include Brahman realization, Paramatma, or Bhagavan. The impersonalists or the philosophical speculators ultimately rest in the Brahman realization. And if they achieve perfection in their particular path and they don't elevate any further, they'll be granted generally the Brahman effulgence, which is not a very enlivening destination. We lose our identity there and merge into the Supreme. And it's a temporary situation ultimately, because like I said earlier, the living entity's natural position is to be active and active in Krishna's service. So these transcendentalists, although advanced in their own ways, will ultimately fall down back in the material world to try again. And then the yogis, they're looking for Paramatma realization. But ultimately, the devotees are looking to, well, they already, by Srila Prabhupada's mercy, are in touch with Bhagavan realization. And it's just a matter of cultivating this desire for bhakti and loving service to the Lord to help us achieve our goal. We're not particularly concerned with liberation like the other transcendentalists, because for the devotee, it's said liberation is always waiting to serve the devotee with folded hands. But we're transcending that, and we want to be selfless in our endeavors to serve Krishna. Service is, and we can observe this in our own lives, that we generally like to serve. We're serving our family, our friends. If we don't have those, we have animals. Like I had dogs, and so we're serving these we're serving these people. And generally speaking, I always felt better when I gave gifts. Christmas time or whatever it may be, you give a gift, you feel a little bit better than getting a gift. Especially as you get older, because then you only get socks and shirts. So it's nice to give. It's nice to get gifts or give gifts, and so you'll see in other spiritual paths, religious paths. Generally, people are asking, "What can God give for them? Give me this daily bread." Christmas is all but forgotten the real purpose, and now it's all about Santa Claus and presents and what I'm getting and how God has blessed me in this way or that way. But you see on our major festivals, we really amp it up a notch. We're already performing services daily, but whatever we're doing, we try to times that by 10, and we try to bring as many people as we can to also partake in it. It's especially Gaura Purnima, Janmashtami. They're very amazing days for us to celebrate. And JFK, the president, he said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country." And so we should have a not similar idea. Ask not what God can do for you, but what you can do for God. Ultimately, we can't do anything. He's complete, but since He's so kind to us and He wants us to reestablish our relationship, He lets us serve Him in various ways. So, fortunately, we're hearing from a bona fide representative of Krishna through the parampara, and that's Srila Prabhupada. And also, for those who are taking to this process seriously, Bhagavad Gita also recommends finding a current living spiritual master. And so that's also very important, because although we can read, and although Prabhupada's teachings are complete, we're so dull-minded that we may not be able to completely absorb it and apply it to our own lives. And we may come up with our own interpretations as a result. But thankfully we have living spiritual masters as well as Vaishnavas who are always willing to help us. And we can hear this philosophy from them, and we can apply it to our lives. Meeting Krishna is not something cheap, although Lord Chaitanya has made it readily available for all of us through the holy names. To really solidify that connection, we have to, just like if you're trying to meet the president, you have to call the secretary and go through them. So also we have representatives through the parampara that are available for us to connect with, and in that way we can serve Krishna, but we should not try to jump directly. And it's very inspiring because Srila Prabhupada was respected by so many people. Still his teachings will live on for at least 10,000 years, and then people will maybe not appreciate it so much, but I don't see how this is timeless wisdom. It was going millions years ago, creation after creation, in the past, and it'll continue in the future. And we're just so fortunate to be situated at a particular time when we're just a generation after Prabhupada, just 6 generations from Lord Chaitanya, and I don't know the math till Krishna, but it's pretty incredible that we're in such a situation, and actually we're not very deserving, but thankfully we've gotten the mercy somehow or other. And as we see, there's not really many people here other than the devotees, but Prabhupada likened this understanding of Krishna consciousness to something like a diamond store, where a diamond store is not having so many people coming, but that doesn't mean it's a worthless product. It actually means it's very valuable. And if someone who takes advantage of this is getting something that'll change the course of their karma. We have so for many people, the materialists, they are trying to understand the supreme absolute truth through their own speculations. And since they're trying to understand without going through a parampara, they're being subjected to the 4 defects of illusion, cheating, imperfect senses, and committing mistakes. So by hearing from the perfect person in Krishna, and as Krishna is passing this knowledge down, it remains perfect because it's being spoken just as it is, which is why we have the Bhagavad Gita as it is. And hopefully I'm not diverting from that. I'm trying to speak the message as I've heard it. But so yeah, and ultimately we're in a society of cheaters. The government is cheating people with false promises that they'll do this or they'll do that for you. And when they get in the position of power, they line their pockets. And these are not the people we want to be cheated by or follow and then get cheated by. These are blind men, and if we follow them, that makes us also blind. So we should decide, okay, we must accept something in this life as a fact. We must come to some sort of belief. Those who say they have no beliefs or they don't follow anything, they got that idea from somewhere also. So ultimately, it's up to us. We're going to follow this person or that person. We're going to follow this philosophy or that philosophy. And it's all been thought up of before. We might be mentally concocting our own spiritual path or something, but it's all been thought of before. And Krishna's addressed all of it, and he's smashed all of it. He's well aware of everything that's going on, and he's trying to give us this. And Krishna is giving this. He's saying, surrender to me. And Lord Chaitanya is just asking us to sing and dance and achieve perfection. So what is the difficulty? Although Kali Yuga is not making it easy in some regards, like we all, those living outside the temple, and before when I was also living outside the temple, things were difficult, but association makes everything easier. So we should seek constant association of devotees. And so this Bhagavatam, it seeks to kick out this cheating religion and this cheating society. There's the second verse in the Bhagavatam says, completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated, this Bhagavat Purana propounds the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva, is sufficient itself for God realization. What is the need of any other scripture? As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within his heart. And like I said earlier, the Supreme Lord is within the heart, but covered like dust on a mirror. So this Bhagavatam is helping us cleanse that mirror, awaken us to the reality, the highest truth. And it's this process of Krishna consciousness is free from material contamination. So we're not in it for name, fame, or anything like this. You won't find this anywhere else, actually. There's always some selfish motive, whether even people who are seemingly pious, which means they're good people, they may be engaging in charitable works, philanthropy, situation. So although we mean well in these kind of guarantee that we'll actually be helping anybody, and people have different karmas, so we can't change their situation, although we may try our best. And so what we can do for someone to actually permanently change their situation and to save the drowning people in this material pool is to actually give them Krishna consciousness through book distribution, through chanting, whatever it may be. So there's always something someone can do to engage in the Sankirtan mission, to spread the glories of the Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita. And in this way, instead of pulling just the shirt off a person and saving them materially for some time, you actually can take the person out of the water and save them spiritually from millions and millions of potential births. We have a very important job that not just hearing this, but actually applying it to our life is very necessary. And Krishna says, and also in the Bhagavad Gita, that those who preach this message are most dear to him. And we should cut out, just like this Bhagavatam is asking, we should cut out all this nonsense of all paths lead to the same goal. These new age sentiments that are going rampant, that are actually creeping into the movement as well. We should make sure that we stick to the real message Srila Prabhupada came to give, and the one that had success then and will have success going forward. Because the consistent fact is that Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam, Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And coming back to this verse, it's established here many times. It's established also in the Bhagavatam with this verse, that the Supreme Person is, also Prabhupada quotes, Ishvara Param Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha. And this person, he is the reservoir of pleasure. His form is full of bliss and knowledge. It's we can relish the pastimes. I'm reading the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and it's very enlivening to be able to read these pastimes of Lord Chaitanya 500 years ago, not very long ago, where him and his associates were spreading this message in such a glorious way and enjoying every second of it, relishing the highest bliss. It can be a struggle sometimes following the rules and regulations, but we can see that these pure devotees of the Lord, the rules and regulations, they don't pertain to them, because they're completely freed from these material contaminations, and they're completely satisfied in the nectar that is Krishna consciousness. And we should have some faith that when we can also get to that platform, maybe in this life or many, many lives further, that the end goal is there's nothing higher, that we can completely reestablish our position with the Supreme Person. It starts by sadhana for us, chanting our rounds and following four regulations. Also comes with that other steps of success to perfect this process under the guidance of Vaishnavas and spiritual master. This can all be clearly revealed to us. So also we were here in this pastime, the gopis, and I don't know where, but Krishna was in Vrindavan. Krishna was hiding from them in the bushes, and he came out as four-armed Narayan. And actually, the gopis rejected this. They said, we want to see Krishna in his two-handed form. Where is he? Where is he? And so we can see the power of this personal connection. Even though they're still in touch with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they're so attached to this personal form that it's their life and soul. And also, as devotees, when we establish this connection in some way or another, friendship, parental servitude, these conjugal love, and neutrality, one of these particular rasas, and then we can transform what we're currently engaging onto the spiritual platform, where we have we also have parents, and some people have girlfriends or boyfriends or whatever it may be. And like I was saying earlier, but these are not satisfying to us or to them. And it's a temporary situation ultimately. We may have the karma to enjoy it very greatly. And some people we meet in the streets, they say they're not suffering. Some don't realize they're suffering. Some may just be having a good time in life. But actually at the end of their life, they can't buy 1 single second more. And they can't ask for any breaks. And they'll have to face judgment. They'll go to the higher species, they may go to the lower species. But for one who's not in Krishna consciousness, their destination is unknown. So we can take that as a cue to really take this life serious, not later, but now, because we could walk out on the street and be hit by a car. Anything can happen urgently or suddenly. And Bhakta Max was saying in Prasadam that your chart was reading that you may have a sudden death. So I guess now's the time you can really hit it hard. You don't know when it will be. So so what's the use? I mean, we see the famous people of the world, the actors, the musicians, the comedians, the athletes. Those who are on the highest rung of society are actually. We should look to them. So everybody's following this path, the rat race, where we think we have some goal in mind, we're going to be comfortable, live nicely. We see those people, they're also not living comfortably or nicely. Famous athletes, LeBron James, whatever it may be, they've admitted, especially now, today it's becoming more open that you can admit these things, that they're depressed, they don't get enough time with their family, miserable. So many musicians, suicide, actors, overdoses, and so they're just they're seeking happiness in the wrong things. We can take an example, a cue from that. That was a big thing for me. Is that coming in Krishna consciousness? Some things didn't make sense, but by observing these tendencies of those who are in positions that I thought would make it good for me, they're also suffering. And so those in the high, and then in the animal species of life, it's also just as ridiculous. There's the alpha male of the dog pack, but what's the use, That's just how it is in human society too, but it's a little bit more polished. But ultimately, no matter where you are, what species of life, whatever class you may be, we're all suffering from the same problems of life: old age, death, disease, and birth. And so actually Bhagavatam describes that even within the womb it's pretty miserable. Actually, you're crying and suffering from being eaten alive by worms or whatever it may be, all these little parasites that reside within you. So every point of life, and so some people may claim when is the living entity actually alive? When it comes to this abortion thing, scientifically I don't know, but I do know that we're suffering immediately. So there must be there's some perception there. But yeah, all these actors. So I don't know who, successful people like Beethoven or something. He's still somewhat known, but over time he'll also fade out. These people have great contributions to material society, but people forget about it. The Beatles, we often use that because the Beatles, John Lennon said at one point that they're bigger than Jesus, but they're dead, and people are forgetting about them. Jesus, he's living somewhat, but if you're not following his instructions, what's the use? All these glories fade with time, but Krishna is eternal. We're all eternal, but Krishna's teachings, they'll go on. The glories of Krishna's devotees will go on as they're given in the Bhagavatam. And by getting absorbed in this material society, Bhagavatam discusses this also in the 12th canto, chapter 12, text 51, those words that do not describe the glories of the Lord, who alone can sanctify the atmosphere of the whole universe, are considered to be like a place of pilgrimage for crows and are never resorted to by those situated in transcendental knowledge. The pure and saintly devotees take interest only in topics glorifying the infallible Supreme Lord. Society strays away from... Oh, no, that's the end of the verse. And these mundane politics and what happened in the sport game yesterday and all this is just like a pilgrimage for crows. I mean, it's the only nectar you can attach to. I mean, I would do it daily, sports, like, what's the new thing? But, like, looking back on it, there's just no taste there anymore. Krishna consciousness is always fresh and new. There's always something new to do, some new place to go, someone new you're going to meet. The devotee's always going to cook something new and fantastic, offer it to Krishna, and then you get, like, personally blessed. So it's always a new joy to experience, and these things don't interest the pure devotees. I'm about to run out of time. So just to wrap up, so one may go on speculating for many lifetimes, but when it comes to real knowledge, they surrender unto Krishna. That is what Krishna says. So like I said, dedicate this one life to Krishna. And this process of Sharanagati, accepting everything favorable for devotion to Krishna, rejecting everything unfavorable for devotion to Krishna, being confident that Krishna will give you his protection, embracing Krishna's guardianship, fully offering oneself to Krishna, and realizing one's lamentable lowliness are the 6 limbs of Sharanagati. So, we are bound up by the ropes of material nature, and we have to seek someone outside this supreme person, Krishna, who can save us. He's the only one who's able to untie us from these tight ropes. And, by our blunt senses or renunciation alone, we cannot understand Krishna, but Krishna reveals himself to those who engage in his service. It's a scientific process. We see it time and time again, that the pure devotees engage in this process, and they are the most happy people you ever meet in your life. So we should give up our nonsense, and we should serve the Supreme, just like limbs serving the body. If the hand rejects feeding the stomach, then the hand will die. So we have to feed the Supreme Person through our devotional practices, and in this way we are satisfied and we can live a happy, blissful life in this life and the next. You get the idea. One last thing is these 9 processes that a devotee just has to choose at least one of these just to attain perfection. You can do it by simply hearing, by chanting, by remembering, by worshiping the Lord's lotus feet, by worshiping the deity of the Lord, by attaining salvation by offering prayers, by rendering service, establishing a friendship with the Lord, or offering everything to the service of the Lord. Srila Prabhupada particularly emphasizes, Lord Chaitanya particularly emphasizes hearing, followed by chanting. These 2 are kind of our foundational practices for our particular condition in this age of Kali Yuga. So if we can hear and chant properly, then we can attain the highest perfection. And when we can gauge our progress in devotional service, and understand that we're getting closer to the Lord as we get free from material desires. So it's not something we have to force as we engage in this process. Attachment to Krishna will increase, material hang-ups and desires will decrease. Thankfully, we have been given this blissful process to do so. So we can invoke this mercy of Lord Chaitanya by continuing to follow the footsteps of the great acharyas and acharyas, Srila Prabhupada can completely liberate the whole world at their own desire, but they've given us this opportunity to engage in service, to get credit for our endeavors as instruments of the same commitment.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that. It's good.
Hare Krishna. Just two questions, or sorry, comments. I like the point you're making in the beginning of the class. You're talking about like Arjuna's situation, that he was about to get, ready to fight for war and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And in that situation, he made time to hear Bhagavad Gita. And that kind of just struck me, because sometimes in Krishna conscious or life in general, like we think we don't have time to hear Bhagavad Gita or read or do Krishna conscious activities because we're so busy. But it's specifically at that time, that was such a dire circumstance or situation. So many things can be, but it's like you're about to go to war, so it's like probably a good time to like figure out like military strategies and things like that, and like get pumped up and fired up. So many different things. It's like an intense period, but he was able to, of course, Arjuna is a pure devotee, but in that intense circumstance, he was able to, hear attentively and be receptive to the message. So especially in difficulties or whatever circumstances life throws at us, we have to like pull back the mind and really apply ourselves to the message of Krishna consciousness more than ever. But just one other comment also, just to clarify, the pure devotees, they don't have to follow the rules or regulations in the sense that they're above them, but generally they do follow them for the benefit of others. And we see that more so. Prabhupada makes that point, and I forget exactly where, but I think the 7th canto and 9th chapter with the prayers of Prahlad Maharaj, he makes that point in one of the purports. He makes that all throughout his books, but he explains that the pure devotees, that they follow the rules and regulations for the benefit of others to set the example. So.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. They're not, many other spiritual leaders don't follow the rules and regulations, and some of these guys are looked up to in society, but we can see, even though our acharyas follow the rules and regulations, they're still experiencing extreme bliss in Krishna service.
Yeah.
So,
Prabhupada too would sometimes explain that acharya means that one who, by following, one is benefited.
yeah.
So if we follow, like, Srila Prabhupada's example, or great devotees that follow in his footsteps, by doing what they do, we should get elevated. So.
Huh? Oh, do the Mataji's have any questions? All right. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha